There's a company named J.R. Simplot, and the company specializes in mining. They mine phosphate, and it happens mostly in South Idaho. And they use smaller creeks to bring this stuff down. So there's been a lot of mining in farm areas and in rivers, and it's caused the destruction of these farm areas and ruins the land that the mining is done on. There are many different places all over the U.S. where these incidences happened, and there's been speculation that it's dangerous for the animals and the wildlife, but there hasn't really been any true hard fact research done on that. There's also been some speculation that it's unhealthy for humans because of the chemicals that are used in the mining process, and they can cause hair loss, your nails can become brittle. But again, we're really focusing on the animals, the wildlife at this point, and the frogs and the fish and everything that are in these areas. So, several years ago, there was some mining spill on a farm, and they noticed that the animals were born after this incident. Some had only one eye, or their legs were deformed. Some were actually born with their brain outside of their skull, and of course those ones didn't survive. The EPA suggested that they dilute these chemicals 1 billion to 5 parts. And they're still waiting for some more tests to be done by the EPA because the scientists are still not being very strict about how much chemicals can be used during these mining processes. And in 2004, the EPA did some testing on fish and found that 7.9 billion fish had something. And there's some more protection groups coming out to protect the wildlife. And the measures by the EPA were not correct, and so the scientists are saying that they need to do it, and it needs to be under 4 or 5. And this company, J.R. Simplot, wants the government to do something so that they can benefit more. And, they're hoping to keep the water cleaner. And saying that they should permit a higher amount. And these mining companies are saying that they don't hurt the fish or the birds or the wildlife, that kind of thing. And so they're trying to convince the EPA to increase the amount of chemicals they can use in these waters, saying that they aren't dangerous. So there, some fish from one of the dirty areas were collected, and scientists studied their offspring, and some of the fish had severe mutations. Some had 2 heads, some of their fins were messed up, they just weren't born correctly. And they found that this was due to the chemicals, but the EPA kind of overlooked it. And some of the scientists on the federal level are supporting it and ignoring the fact that there's any bad repercussions due to this mining. And so again, they're doing some investigations. And some of the scientists that are doing the tests for this company actually work under the company, and so these are not valid tests. And so there's these environmental groups, and then there's also these big mining companies, and they've been butting heads over the environmental issues caused by mining for a long time. There's a man from California, and he's in Congress, and he's in support of so yeah, the federal government is looking at the wildlife effects from this mining and kind of supporting the company and not being very professional about it. So one man he read over the research that had been taken that these mining things do affect the fish and the frogs and everything, and he concluded that it just affected one type of fish and wasn't really a big deal. And, you know, said maybe it's a 20% problem. And the EPA wanted 80%. And so now they're trying to increase the amount of chemicals that are permitted. So the area where they're mining for phosphate opened in 1994, and they've been mining since then. And then in 2003, the company told them that they must clean up because the mess became too severe. And so the company did say they accept the cleanup and went ahead and did the cleanup, but then they never really finished the cleanup. There is one place, and it should be 5 billion, but it's actually 70, so it's a huge amount over the allowed amount. And they're trying to get the cleanup going and saying that the trout are still breeding and breeding healthy, and they're doing just fine. And they do survive in cold water very well, so they're tougher than some of the other kinds of fish. So it's 13 to 14 million parts something in each fish. And they've been checking the environmental quality of this area, and the first, they're waiting to hear if they're approved or not, and the EPA has the final decision. So some people were getting very upset, saying that the company just wants all they care about is the money, and they don't care about ruining this earth. So it's been a big controversy. I'm not really sure what will happen.